continuing to work on the ridge vent on this 30 by 96 two-position movable high tunnel. What I'm going to talk about now is how to splice some of the different parts together. We have here is our aluminum roll lock. This is the extrusion in which the roll bar will come down and tuck underneath to make a seal at the bottom of the ridge vent. This has an all-metal design, so we've got a double plastic attachment channel laying right on top of the hoop tops. Again, if this was a wood design, we'd have a 2x6 laying flat on the hoop, a 2x4 vertical up from that, and the roll lock would be slightly twisted out right on top of that 2x4. When you're working with the roll lock and the double plastic attachment channel, if your spacing is exactly perfect along the whole building, everything, since these are 12-foot sections, the roll lock and the double plastic attachment channel ideally would end right at the hoop. That doesn't always happen because this is the real world. So sometimes we need to splice these parts together. There are different splice plates. You can take these splice plates, they're just little pieces of metal, that you can cut them into different sizes or make them however you'd like to. Typically they come in some of the bigger pieces, so we can cut these down to use them exactly how we need them. In this scenario, you'll see that the roll lock is coming just shy of the ridge vent frame. So what we've done is we put a splice plate right here. Since there's this little triangle in the roll lock, what we're able to do is put the splice plate right onto the frame. I put the splice plate on first, and then I screwed this to the frame. I made sure that my screw heads would not interfere with where the roll lock is going to go. After the splice plate was put in, we put our roll lock in place. I was able to screw my roll lock right into my splice plate. This still secures the two pieces of roll lock together with a splice plate. Everything is still secured to the ridge vent frame. We've got a nice strong junction there. Here our double plastic attachment channel is coming, and it ends up sticking out a little bit past the hoop. We could trim this piece, or when the next piece comes over, we can still barely get screws in, but just to make sure this is a nice and strong joint, we have the splice plates. It was really fast just to go ahead and put in another splice plate. On the metal version of this system, with our double plastic attachment channel, there's some components here that are also worth mentioning that are independent of the splice plate. On the underside of the double plastic attachment channel, we put a pipe strap. On the end of the double plastic attachment channel, you can see that there's a little groove right here. That allows a slot in the back to slide 1/4-inch hex bolts into the back of the channel. What we're doing is we need to have a spot for our rope wall on the outside of the ridge vent. So on the right of all of our hoops, we just arbitrarily pick that side. We're sliding the eye bolts in before we attach the plastic attachment channel to the hoops. On the left side of the hoops, we're drilling a hole, a 1/4-inch hole that we're rounding out just a little bit for an eye bolt. So when we put our pipe straps on, we always make sure the text is upright just for aesthetics. We put our pipe strap on. So when I installed this splice plate, I made sure the splice plate was not interfering with where the bolt was going to go. I could also drill a hole through here through the bolt, but it's easier just to shift my plate so that it was further on this side. Then when I drilled the hole for my eye bolt, I just made sure that I drilled the hole through the splice plate for the pipe strap. When I have the eye bolt through the double plastic attachment channel and the pipe strap, we can go ahead and secure that. These will be installed later because we're going to want to put this on after the roof plastic is on. The piece of roof plastic that comes up to the double plastic attachment channel, we're going to put a piece of plastic attachment wire in the bottom of the piece of channel. Then that flap is going to continue up and it's going to go into the plastic attachment channel in the bottom of the roll lock. We'll be doing that from up here, so it'll be a difficult piece to get in, but we're going to put two pieces of wire on this side, one on the bottom of the double plastic attachment channel and one up here on the underside of the roll lock. After that flap of plastic is in, and we're going to make that loose so the roll bar can still come underneath it, we'll then install our eye bolts for our rope wall, and we'll also install rope hooks along the single plastic attachment channel that's on our ridge vent purlin. This is where that rope wall will go to zigzag back and forth. That'll keep the roll-up ridge vent from flying out in wind. And that's some of the different ways in which you can splice the different components together. We're getting ready to put plastic on our 30 by 48 movable high tunnel with a ridge vent. There are a couple of components that we need to get ready before we can start with our plastic. What we're going to talk about is how we need to install our roll bars to our roll lock for our ridge vent. There are these little brackets that are called roll bar installation aid for roll lock. So what it is an installation for the roll bar and how it attaches to the roll lock. We made a little mock-up here showing the roll lock that'd be up against the building. We have the roll lock right here showed in kind of a vertical position, and we have these little hangers on it. So the hanger goes on the top of the roll lock, and it hangs down. The bottom hits the bottom of the structure. Then our roll bars, we have a short section here, rest inside the little hanger, and what that does is make sure that we properly align the location of the roll bar to the roll lock when we put our plastic on. So when our roof plastic comes up over the peak of the ridge vent, it's then going to come down. We're going to wiggle wire the top of that in to the peak of the ridge vent, and then it's going to come down, and then we're going to secure that into our roll bars. So the first thing we're going to do is actually assemble our roll bar hangers. There is a sheet of instructions that comes with these as the different types of hangers, installation aids that are available. We're using the SCHRL, and that is labeled, should be labeled on the packet that comes with the installation parts. So what we have is the hanger that goes around the roll lock and the small U-shaped piece which catches the roll bar. You'll notice that there's 2 holes in the hanger. If you look closely at the instructions, you'll see that the bottom of the round hanger part is basically about flush with the bottom of the square piece. That means when you line these up, we're going to use the top of the 2 holes. So when we put them together, the bottom of the round piece is almost flush with the bottom of the square piece. There are little self-tapping screws that come with it. They take a 1/4 inch drive, so we've got a 1/4 inch ratcheting screwdriver here. We go ahead and we tighten that down just until it's flush. It doesn't need to be snug. It's okay if the screw ends up spinning. And that's how we make that hanger. The hangers are designed to be able to hold 48 feet of the roll bar at one time. So if you have buildings that are longer than that, you basically need to set up your hangers, install your roll bar, move your hangers, and then use the hangers over and over again for the rest of the ridge vent. And that's how we're going to use our installation aids. Continuing to talk about installing an automated ridge vent. So now here we are. This is a completed installation for our ridge vent components. We're going to talk about some of the different places where they all go. We've got our traveling gearbox right here. There's rollers on it which goes up and down this pipe. This pipe allows, just make sure that as our tube motor, which is installed into the end of this assembly, as it rotates, it doesn't rotate with respect to the pipe. So as the roll bar starts to spin, it will travel up and down this pipe. So we need a place to mount this pipe. So at the top, we've got a little piece of angle iron up here with several holes in it that allow us for adjustment. We've got 2 open eye bolts. If you look closely, they're actually not closed, and that allows us to get chains over them. So our pipe right here, we drilled a hole in it, and we've got a bolt that goes through that pipe that connects the chain to the top eye bolt. The bottom eye bolt has a pulley on it. That pulley comes down, attaches to this traveling assembly, goes up and down, and then inside of this pipe there's a counterweight. This counterweight travels up and down, and what that does is make sure that the weight of the motor doesn't cause the roll bar to open and close awkwardly. We want to make sure that that weight isn't banging around in wind or anything like that, so we put it inside of this 4-inch piece of PVC. To mount this, we added actually an additional horizontal steel stud at the bottom of the pipe. So we attach the top of the pipe to our hoop, and the bottom of it we attach to an extra stud, a horizontal stud. So now that allows this weight to go up and down inside of this, but not be affected by wind or to damage any of the end walls. If you notice where our plastic starts, all the way over here, the plastic starts past the tube motor. So when we installed our roll bar, we had to make sure that we cut our roll bar so that the tube motor could sleeve into the end and that this whole assembly didn't stick out too far. If you didn't have an automated ridge vent assembly, your roll bar would come to the end, and this assembly right here would be a gearbox. And then you'd be able to attach that gearbox with a hand crank and manually allow it to go up and down. You'd still need this pipe for the gearbox to travel along, but you wouldn't need the PVC pipe, the counterweight, the tube motor, or any of the wiring. The wiring that comes from the tube motor is this white cord right here. It goes up, tucks underneath this flashing, and goes into the building. On the back side of the hoop, we've mounted a weatherproof junction box that we can attach our wiring, and it goes down to our controller. Now we're going to get off the ladders. I can go down and show you the controller. We're on the inside of our structure, continuing to talk about our automated ridge vent. If you look up here at the peak of the ridge vent, you can see the white cord we just talked about coming into the structure and going into the weatherproof junction box. You'll see that there's a black cable that comes out of the junction box, and it goes to a limit switch assembly. What that limit switch does is it stops the roll bar in the down position. As the roll bar goes up and down over time, that plastic is going to expand. So instead of us having time or something else stop the roll bar in the bottom position, we actually have a limit switch. So the roll bar gets all the way down, tucks underneath the roll bar, and it hits that limit switch. It'll stop the motor right at that final location. So that black wire goes up to that limit switch assembly. We had to cut a small slot in our roll lock for the sensor that sticks out of the little bar that sticks out of our limit switch assembly. That wiring goes into the control box and comes down. The wire comes all the way down here to our controller. We can set the temperature of our controller to open and close at a given temperature. You can also set the temperature differential. And you also can manually open and close it. So there's a blue box here that says manual operation. So if you can look back up there, I'm going to click open. You'll be able to watch the ridge vent open. The tube motor has different adjustments on the end of it that allows you to change how many rotations it considers a full cycle. So as the tube motor rotates all the way up, it'll go up, and you want to make sure that you stop it before you get to your jumper hoses. Now that it's all the way up, what we're going to do is I'm going to press the manual operation close button. It's going to go all the way back down, and if you look at where that limit switch assembly is, you'll see that it stops when it trips that limit switch. So the roll bar is going all the way down. It hits the roll lock, goes around the top of the roll lock. It continues to spin, which tucks it underneath the roll lock. And as soon as it comes up and it hits our limit switch, you can hear the limit switch click, and it stops the roll bar in the closed and tight position. We're going to go to the outside of the structure and show you how it works from there. We're now going to show you how the automated ridge vent works from the outside of the building. I'm in here with a controller. You can go ahead and look up there, and I'm going to press the manual operation open button. You'll see that the tube motor starts to spin. It goes around the roll lock and starts climbing up to open the automated ridge vent. We have the tube motor settings set in such a way that it stops before it gets to the jumper hose. Now that it's in the open position, I'm going to press the manual operation close button. You'll see the tube motor spin in the opposite direction. It will then go around the roll lock, continue to turn to tuck itself underneath the roll lock. It will hit the limit switch assembly and then stop. We've now completed installation of the automated ridge vent.